hate spending money in general, but especially on rabbit treats. Nearly all of them are overpriced, made with low quality ingredients that are either very unhealthy or just plain unsafe. I love the idea of making DIY treats, but for the most part, the recipes were extremely complex. I had little to none of the ingredients, and they often used a blender and other power tools that I simply didn't have, or if I did have, my mom didn't want me to use. So I came up with both of these recipes. They're both only 2 ingredient recipes, are extremely easy, fairly healthy, and they can be catered and made in whatever way you want for your specific rabbit. They're also extremely fast and easy, so let's get started. All you need to make these really easy rabbit treats are a cup of their pellets, a fork, and some water. You can use any type of pellets that you want, but I highly recommend using a high quality Timothy-based pellet. I'm using the Sherwood Adult Rabbit pellets. Optionally, you can add some type of sweetener. I'm going to be using this Gerber's baby pear fruit juice and some banana baby food. Just stay away from anything grape. You can also use some fresh or frozen fruit. This might be a little bit harder to mash up if you're not using a blender, but it's definitely something that you can do. To make this, all you need to do is add a little bit of water to your pellets and stir it up. The pellets are going to absorb the water and eventually they're going to get all big and puffy and you're going to be able to make kind of like a Timothy dough. There's no exact measurements here because it's really going to vary based on the brand of pellets that you're using. I would just recommend adding a little bit of water, stirring it thoroughly, checking the texture, and then going back and deciding if you need more. When the outside of the pellets start breaking apart like this is where I like to add my sweetener. I'm going to first go in with the banana baby food. When you're using anything, make sure that you're checking the ingredients. For example, the first ingredients is banana, water, and lemon juice concentrate. Of course, this isn't the healthiest, but this is why it's a treat. There isn't too much rhyme or reason in how you add the ingredients. I like to go in with the thicker stuff first, whether that be baby food or some fresh fruit, and then I'll add my liquid substances like more fruit juice and some more water at the end, just to make sure that it's a texture that I really like. Keep stirring. The pellets are eventually going to break apart and everything is going to come together. At this point, you can definitely use a blender if you wanted, but I really wanted to make a no blender alternative since so many of the pet recipes I saw involved using a blender, and I know my mom isn't super excited when I want to use our kitchen grade products for the animals because sometimes they can break or just be a pain to clean out. So this is the way I prefer to do it, but if you wanted to speed things up and make a bigger batch, you could definitely do it in a blender. It's also really satisfying to watch it mix and come together. Depending on your brand of pellets, you might have to add more water, so if you still feel like the pellets aren't breaking apart, just add a little bit more water and keep working at it. Next, I'm going to go in with my baby fruit juice as an additional sweetener. I'm using baby pear fruit juice, but you can obviously just use adult grade food depending on what you have. I had this left over from my gliders. Also, make sure you check the first couple of ingredients, make sure that it looks normal. In this case, it's just pear juice from concentrate, which is great. You can use any type of fruit and fruit juice that you want, just make sure that it's something that's safe for rabbits. I think pear and apple are ones that are really safe and most rabbits really enjoy it. Also, please don't use anything with grape in it. Grape is just very high in sugar and it's not great for dogs and cats and especially not rabbits. Also, anything high in vitamin C like lemon juice or orange juice is also something that you don't want to use. Also, comment down below what your rabbit's favorite fruit or treat in general is. I'm always looking for new stuff to try with my rabbits. I think my rabbit's favorite fruit by far is papaya, but I always have the hardest time finding it in season, and I feel like it smells really gross. I know a lot of people really like papaya, but I honestly can't stand it. But it's definitely my rabbit's, and my sugar gliders for that fact's, favorite fruit. So this is pretty much the recipe. At this point, you can add whatever else you want in. I decided to add a little bit of oats because my rabbits absolutely go crazy over this and we have some on hand. Some other things you could do are just some different chunks of fruit, or if you want to add in some more pellets just to add a different texture at this point, I think that would also be great. If you want to also mix in some other rabbit treats you have on hand just to get rid of them, I think that would also be really cool. This is one of my favorite treat recipes to recommend because even for very sensitive rabbits who normally can't have treats, this works really well because you are just using their regular brand of pellets for the majority of the ingredients. So it's not going to be a ton of new foods in their system. Also, it's very easy to make this extremely healthy, especially if you stick with the basic recipe of pellets and water. Obviously, if you're adding in more fruit juices and fruit chunks, it's not going to be quite as healthy, so you should definitely moderate how much you're feeding. But depending on what works for you and your rabbit, you can really cater the recipe to that. So once it's to a texture that you like, you can be completely done. Now, if you don't want to put this in the oven and have to bake it, you can actually feed this to your rabbits fresh and they will go crazy over it. If you do want to put it into the oven, I would recommend just molding it into some type of shape. This type of sphere works well, or you can use a cookie cutter and kind of lay it flat and cut them out that way. Pretty much whatever you want to do. Now, if you are going to want to feed this fresh, I would definitely recommend making a smaller batch and keeping it in the refrigerator. Also, depending on what type of fruits and add-ins you add, it's going to determine how long it's going to stay good for. If you're using just the pellets and the water, it's going to last for pretty much forever. It might just get a little bit dried out and the texture might change. But if you have a lot of chunks of fresh fruit, it's probably not going to stay as good for as long, so make sure you feed it a little bit sooner. You can also definitely freeze this recipe, but it's kind of a pain because you'll have to thaw it out before you feed it. So I don't know if I'd recommend it, but it's definitely something that you could try. Now, if you do want to bake it, I did mine at 350 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes, but the time is going to vary based on how thick your treats are, so just watch them. I take mine out when I start to notice it go into a golden brown color, and I notice that the edges start to get a little bit more crispy, as you can see here. Now, while we're already here, I thought I might as well show you another one of my favorite rabbit treat recipes. This is another one that doesn't need a blender, so if you don't have the ingredients for the first one, you hopefully have it for the second. Now, if you're already here and you're enjoying yourself, you might as well hit subscribe to see other cute content like this adorable rabbit licking this banana baby food jar clean. Like, what's cuter than this? Come on, guys. What you'll need for this recipe is a baking pan, a large bowl to stir in, some oats, a spoon, some banana baby food, or a real banana. This one is honestly so self-explanatory. All you have to do is either mush up your banana or put your banana baby food into a bowl, add in your oats, and mix everything together. Obviously, the more banana or baby food you add, the more liquidy it'll be, and the more oats, the more solid it'll be. This treat is definitely more unhealthy than the first, and this is another one that I would first introduce in moderation, especially if your rabbit has never had oats before, because obviously there's quite a bit in this recipe. You can use any flavor of baby food that you want. Again, something that's fruit-based and safe for rabbits. Make sure you're checking the first few ingredients. When it comes to using real fruit for this, the only one I find that actually has a texture like this is real bananas. Even then, real bananas tend to be a little bit harder depending on how ripe it is, so you might have to add a little bit of water to get the consistency that you want in the end. This is also a treat that you can feed fresh. In fact, I think that's how my rabbits prefer it, but because this recipe has so much fruit in it, it's not going to last quite as long as the first recipe if you don't want to bake it. So I recommend feeding this all the day of that you made it, or if you do decide to bake it, you can also go that route. Compared to the first recipe, this is a lot thicker and it's a lot stickier and it's not as smooth, so it's a little bit harder to make pretty shapes with. So I kind of just like to work with what I'm given and try to make these little balls. And because I often have people ask, the little scratches on my arm are actually from my sugar gliders, and no, they're not being mean or aggressive, it's actually the opposite. They're so bonded to me that I have to pretty much pry them off my cold, dead hands when I want to put them back in the cage. So these are like my warrior scars. You're going to want to keep going making these little balls. The bigger you make them, the harder they're going to be to bake through all the way, so I recommend keeping them to about this size. Also, the entire time I was making this, my rabbit Sachin was just at my feet and giving me the most annoying begs ever, so I just had to include him at the end. Just like the first, I also baked these at 350 for about 15 minutes. Also, I have like a solid 3 minutes of footage of just Sachin licking and eating the treats that I'm making, so let me know if you guys think I should post these on my Instagram or something, or make like a compilation, because these are just so adorable and I feel awful cutting them out because he is literally the cutest. And if you're watching any of the other footage and wondering why Sachin looks super dirty and neglected, this is why. I'm not sure what inclined me to want to rub all these leftover treats on him, but something did, so that's why he looks a mess.
It's right there.
Also, no joke, but this footage is actually from last year, and I don't know if you guys can tell, but Sachin is actually bigger than Bachchan, and now it's completely the other way around. Now, you can be done here, but if you want to follow along and make the little toy that I did, here's what you'll need. First, you'll need some twine, then 2 toilet paper rolls, and some scissors. The first thing I do is I flatten the toilet paper rolls so that they're completely flat, and I cut them into about 3/4 inches to 1 inch sections. Again, there's no official rules here. You can pretty much make any type of toy that you want, but this is just what I decided to do. Once your pieces are cut, you're going to use the pointy end of your scissors or a barbecue skewer that has a pointy tip, or the tip of your knife to just poke some holes into the toilet paper rolls. You want these holes to be big enough for the twine to be able to easily slide through. I decided to go with a knife and use a cutting board, which was kind of a more dangerous way to do it, but it got the job done. Once you have all your pieces, you're going to want to take a long piece of twine, obviously however long you want your treat toy to be, and you're going to want to tie about 3 double knots at the end of it. This is so the pieces obviously won't fall off. Now all you have to do is just thread everything onto the twine. I decided to do 1 roll of toilet paper tube to 1 treat toy. My holes were a little bit small, so I had to use a barbecue skewer to help kind of push it through and get the twine in there, but if you make bigger holes, you probably won't have this issue. Also, I'm limiting this to just toilet paper rolls and my treat toy, but you can obviously use whatever you want. I think using some cardboard and cutting it out into some fun shapes would also look really cool on this toy. I've also seen some really pretty wooden beads in different craft stores, and I've even seen wooden beads used in other rabbit toys, so I think that would be really awesome if you wanted to add it here. Also, plastic toys can work as well, just to add a little bit of interest to the toy. I think some cool balls or even some stacking cups, if you're able to put holes in them, I think all of that would be awesome. Once you've threaded everything on, I think this looks absolutely awesome, by the way. All you have to do is just tie another triple knot at the end, just to make sure that the pieces don't fall off the other way, and your toy is all done. A small alternative you can do if you don't want to have to use quite so many treats but still want a long garland is to add some knots in between every single treat that you thread on. What this is going to do is just add a little bit more string and a little bit more gap in between each treat, which in turn makes the garland longer. This would be really good if you have a rabbit you don't trust completely and things might overeat the treats if you put a huge amount in their cage, so that would work really well for that. Also, if you do have a rabbit who is a huge overeater and is very prone to going into GI stasis, just be careful about putting a huge treat garland like this. In that case, I'd probably use a lot more cardboard than I would the treat. Now, I hope you enjoy this fail of me trying to get some cute aesthetic clips of my rabbits eating the treats.
Such. Sachi.
Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to let me know what type of videos you'd like to see in the future. Also, leave a comment down below. I love chatting with you guys and I reply to every single one of my comments. Okay, bye!